I want to make a mention that anybody else who wants to come on this show and voice your opinion, you're welcome to come on.
There's proof.
This is not just simply that we're going to endorse Keith Fair and what he has to say.
And
if you got some opposition opinions, you're welcome here. Good morning. Happy Memorial Day. Welcome back to Talking Racine. On my left is Mr. George Myers.
Morning.
To the right, Mr. Jim Spodek, our producer. I'm Dr. Ken Yorgan, your host. Now we're going to discuss something very briefly here. There was a meeting on the 7th of May and the City Council, and in that meeting there were some proposals made by the administration which we felt was really going to lock down government and create more secrecy and actually reduce the amount of transparency that works in the council, the amount of information that is readily available to you. The City Council members pretty much agreed with what we were saying, and they raised some issues. They raised 3 actual amendments to the proposed changes that Corey Mason and the administration had brought forward. All 3 of them passed with substantial numbers, 14-1, 13-2, and 9-6. Now, subsequent to that, Mayor Mason vetoed all 3 of those votes by the City Council. So this came up at the meeting on this past Tuesday evening, and it was discussed, and a lot of votes changed, and all of Mayor Mason's vetoes were upheld, which we believe the City Council, in doing that, greatly reduced their own power, their own relevance, and greatly diminished the amount of information that's readily available to you and I as citizens of this community. So,
I think it also exhibited the immense influence the mayor has over so many of the councilmen. It was more than just the council didn't override the veto. To override those vetoes would have taken a supermajority.
Right. 10-5 it would have had to have done.
10-5. They went from 14-1 votes and 13-2 votes, like you said, to a majority the other way.
Yeah.
Tremendous shift in the voting by the aldermen because the mayor had vetoed it, and they were perfectly reasonable vetoes. I don't think they were that big a deal, you know. One of them was that if you wanted to have something reconsidered.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Okay.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. We're going to do that next week. We're going to put up a whiteboard.
I want to play just one clip from that meeting, just to give you a quick overview, and then we can kind of, we got a special guest, so we're going to bring him on. But I want to just bring this up, and then we can kind of just make a quick talk, and then we can move on.
Yeah.
And my next scenario then is, because what it's saying here, upon affirmative vote of the aldermanic members of the common council, they shall consider such communication. We need 10 of the 15 aldermen to agree. So say, for example, an alderman puts a communication in requesting that the mayor provide, say, for example, the police study to the members of the council, and to provide the costs associated with that study, and to provide where the money came from. So if the mayor decides not to send that item to a standing committee, or if he sends it to a standing committee and the chair decides not to hear that in 90 days, how is this council going to be apprised in a timely fashion?
Point of order, Your Honor. The alderman is speaking of the issues related to the next item, not the current item I'm speaking on.
Your point of order is well taken. If the alderman could limit her comments to the item.
Thank you. I'll just repeat them all on the next item. But I'm still seeing the same thing, that it's going to take 10 of the 15 aldermen to get that communication heard. That's what I'm reading here.
Okay, we feel that clip was a pretty clear explanation of what was going on. Alderman Sandy Widener ran it down pretty good. Like I said before the clip, we're going to run a whiteboard next week. We'll break it all down in a visual presentation so it's easy to see where the changes have been made, easy to see where the chain of progression goes. But right now we're going to bring in former Racine City Council Alderman from the 1st District, Mr. Keith Fair. Now Keith has been living in Jacksonville, Florida for the past about 7 years, I believe, hasn't he?
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of people remember Keith. Keith was a very outspoken member of the City Council, and he was actually a strong advocate for the people. He really was.
Well, I already know who public enemy number one is. I'm public enemy number one. I realize who I am as a person. I'm very secure in my skin. I know that I'm black. I'm not trying to be white.
There's no reason whatsoever. It came through committee. There's no reason. They can't come up with a dignified reason and stuff as to why this item has to go back there. There's no dignified reason. Whatever. If race is very prevalent in 2010, let's deal with it.
Why don't we just do this? Why don't we just not let the heathens in the downtown area? All I'm asking of this council to do is, and this committee to do, is be consistent. Be consistent across the board, and you won't have a problem with Alderman Fair. It's a right because you pay for the license and you go forward and you own the license and gives you the right, and it's not a privilege. And that's just one black man's opinion.
So we're interested in seeing what he's been up to. He has been keeping his eye on his old community of Racine, and he's got some interesting viewpoints that he's going to share. So we'll be back with him in just a minute. And we're back. And this is Mr. Keith Fair, former alderman of Racine City Common Council from the 1st District.
Welcome, Keith.
Welcome. And a veteran. I see you got your Marine hat on. Once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
Well, the in Florida and stuff, being a veteran in Florida is different than being in Wisconsin.
Well, we don't want to go into that too much.
I know, but I'm just saying the reason why I wear my hat is because it's become a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Well, you attended the Common Council meeting on Tuesday.
Yes, I did.
Well, what do you think? What do you think of our Common Council?
I got a lot of opinions. And don't want to make a whole lot of judgments.
Well, it was a very relevant meeting because of those amendments that were passed in the 7th of May meeting, which Mayor Corey Mason then vetoed. And then, of course, they were up for discussion and another vote at the meeting on Tuesday night. So you got to see some historic changes take place in the city council. Now, I think you've heard our opinion of what transpired.
Mm-hmm.
That they actually abdicated a lot of their power and a lot of their responsibility. And did you see that the same way that we did, or are we missing something?
Perfectly honest with you, gentlemen, I got stuck when I was there. So basically wasn't paying attention to all of the dialogue, but I got stuck because there was so much conflict in the debate and everything. So I got onto the debate and listening to the debate and got stuck.
So you were kind of bearing witness to the dynamic of the council itself, and it served as kind of a distraction from the business at hand.
I believe some of the aldermen, some of them don't understand. Some of them don't understand the process. Some of them are oblivious to what's going on.
What did you see there that brings up this opinion? What did you see? Anything specifically, or,
Well, when I was on the council and stuff for those years, there was always spirited debate. Sometimes it might have got a little borderline ugly, but it was spirit debate. And they weren't necessarily, the council as a whole wasn't segregated as it is now. And when I say segregated, I'm not talking about black to white. I'm talking about it's just two factions, and it's a segregated council.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I saw, and I'm on the camera and stuff, so I'm going to kind of temper myself.
No, let her rip.
Let her rip. Hell, we do.
This is Talking Racine.
Yeah.
I said, my opinion, and purely my opinion, it looked like, to me, it looked like a bunch of white men, aldermen, beating on a bunch of white women with the black aldermen sitting on the side and stuff, acting like they were oblivious that the conversation was going on. And then you got little Alderman Molly Jones. She's sitting there, and she's old enough to know and stuff that the behavior is totally out of appropriate and wrong, and so she sat silent because she probably didn't want to get into the middle of it. And then one of the black aldermen has just been appointed to one of the heaviest positions in the state of Wisconsin, Alderman Tate.
So he was one of the two black men watching the white men cremate the white women.
There was
so
three.
There
was three black men there, and one looked like he was asleep. So therefore, he has an excuse. He was asleep. You know, and you know, I mean, we got the clips and everything, but
bear with me and perhaps entertain for a moment. Just want to correct the record. All the executive committee members who were present at the meeting spoken about, could you raise your hands? Please. Everybody else who was at that meeting, including city staff who was at that meeting, could you raise your hands? Keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. I just want to make sure that we note that it wasn't just the executive committee present. There were others there. So just for the record, just to correct the record.
The meeting minutes do not state anybody else was present. Does anyone want to see them? I have them right here. It doesn't say anybody else was present at that meeting. So what did that lead me to believe? Nobody else was there. What is that going to lead our constituents? That nobody else was there, and only 5 people are making this decision. I am just really reaching out to the fact that this is going to make a lot of us irrelevant by doing this.
if you guys look at this thing, look at it. You saw, they used to call me the angry black man.
I'm sure that you would have spoken up if you'd seen that.
Yeah,
you were not afraid to get up and
I
say
definitely
something.
would, especially if and stuff. It was somebody on that council as a woman and stuff, and these guys were piling up on her and stuff. And these people, they see this thing and they see it. You can deny it, but you see it exactly the way I see it. Alderman Widener says this. Jason Meekman's next light on. He starts slapping around with his crazy stuff. Then all of a sudden, Kerry Glenn says something. Trevor Young, the alderman next to him, his light goes on. And he starts talking crazy. And I say talking crazy and stuff from the standpoint that every time somebody opens their mouth and stuff that has an adverse view from you,
yeah,
you don't have to get the last word in, and that's basically what these guys were doing, trying to get the last word in. But at the same time, my perception is and stuff that they do this all the time. This wasn't anything that was like spontaneous. This is a cultural behavior,
right,
and the culture of the council.
It's been habituated.
It's getting downright ugly, I tell you.
Well, and I think particularly Trevor Young, which we've addressed here, and to a great deal Jason Meekman, they're also deep in the mayor's pocket.
Yeah.
So they feel safe doing that, behaving like that, because they got the mayor behind them. And typically, when you're talking about Kerry Glenn or Sandy Widener, they're speaking out something that might not be in exactly accord with what the mayor wants.
Yes.
Right.
And so these other two jump in defending the mayor.
Keith, I think what's happened here is that you have such a delegation from the Democratic Party that they look at Sandy Widener and they look at Kerry Glenn and they possibly look at maybe Henry Perez and a couple others as kind of being out of the loop. And so they're not, and I've heard this before, and I've heard it on the council. Well, we all have to work together. We all have to be together and work as a team.
Translation, you should think like us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, when you talk about, this slapping around, I think that's where it comes from. I think it's been embedded into this Democratic Party that says you have to be like us.
And so there's a subculture, underbelly of stuff going on underneath all of this culture, and that's what's happening. So you said the Democratic Party is running this, orchestrating this thing, which is a true statement, because when I was running, I was a Democrat because my father was a Democrat and my mother was a Democrat. I was a Democrat.
You don't need to make excuses.
And I was no, I was
just because you're sitting next to a libertarian.
No, I'll get to that part.
He dropped the L bomb.
But it was nonpartisan. So
it wasn't as bold as it was.
That's exactly the thing. Now, Jim, when he mentioned that the Democratic Party is running the city right now, I don't think he's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're focusing any particular animosity at the Democratic Party per se. What you're saying is these are nonpartisan positions. It should be a nonpartisan government.
Well, it came out. Corey Mason said, "I'm the Democrat." Well,
he's running against Sandy.
Yeah, he put it out there,
and as well as he is.
He is,
but
he's a partisan Democrat.
Okay, but he's not supposed to be.
No,
correct.
So I'm saying
that's where this animosity is coming from.
Yeah, but I'm saying on the top of the candidate form that we go out and get signatures to run for office, it says right on the top, nonpartisan election. So nonpartisan election. For example, when John Tate ran against Michael Shields. Michael Shields was a sitting alderman, past NAACP president, and he was a past chairman of the Democratic Party.
Right.
So
he never talked about it.
So no, he didn't. So 25 to 28 years, he sits on this council, and then all of a sudden, he's still in the Democratic Party, and he's running for office. So here comes this young upstart, and I have nothing against anybody running, period. But the protocol that me and Corey and Mayor Mason, that we came up underneath, is a Democrat never runs against a sitting Democrat. Mayor Dicker tried to do it to Bob Turner, and the whole state nearly turned upside down and stuff. They were coming in here and they were saying, "Why are you doing this?" But he had all of this money and stuff, and he thought that he could run against Bob and knock Bob out. But it was fracturing the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party racially has never recovered from Dicker trying to run against Bob Turner as a sitting Democratic assemblyman. And so now it seems I come back here and you guys are saying, oh, the Democrats and stuff is running the GOTV for Tate. Well, first of all, Michael's a Democrat. So Tate is a Democrat. So why didn't you guys just step back? Because we got two Democrats running. But you sided with the Democrat that you thought was easier to work with you, and then you put this man up to run because we never heard Tate's name in any kinds of political circles before. You got this man. You handpicked this man.
And when you say you're talking about the
Democratic Party.
The Democratic Party.
Yeah.
You handpicked him, and he ran against Michael. I guess beat him by little votes and everything.
Couple votes, yeah.
But it was wrong.
Well, now, do you think that they're also now, I mean, the way I look at it, they're handpicking Trevor, they're handpicking...
well, there was Trevor Young, Jan Levy, Natalia Taft, Maurice Horton was appointed by Mason.
Right.
And who was the fifth?
There's a picture.
There's a fifth.
Well, Cole. I mean, Cole now.
Yeah, no. I mean, of the new ones, I think there's a.
I don't remember. Well, I mean,
you hit the four.
Yeah, but they, there's a picture of them all together, and I mean, and we're not privy to the Democratic Party and what happens within the party and how they manipulate who gets to run and who doesn't get to run and who gets the money and who does not get the money, but they definitely have taken on the city of Racine. They've my thing is that they're working their way into the unified school system. They want the city to try to mesh with the school system because the school system is going to have some problems. With this charter schools and what have you. So I can see why they're doing it, but it's a force. I mean, it's a force. This nonpartisan is no longer. And now with this, I want to call it a power grab takeover. They now have within probably 3 or 4 people in the city of Racine dictating everything, and we kind of went through it, and you saw, part of it on the council.
Women and black men stick together. We got the power base, and now we can move on. Some might deviate away from that, some like that. But basically, if the council wanted to have that types of power, women, this is the year of the woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it's so beautiful to see and stuff that there's 8 up there, but when they're being smacked down by, using your terminology, but when they're being smacked down by the power grabbers, be it Jason Meekfa or somebody that like Trevor, that's content and stuff to just smooths his way to the top and stuff.
What they did now was a power grab. Now these aldermen,
and it's not coincidence either,
No,
because
absolutely.
Corey and the party knew full well that they had this is their moment of greatest influence. And now is the time to.
I'm
do
going to
this.
tell you, it might be the year of the woman, but I'm going to tell you what has happened is it is the citizens have now lost. So it's the loss to the citizens because their representation is 0.
And I'll tell you what's going to be really interesting about this new system coming up is that the committee heads are going to be extremely powerful, more powerful than the rest of the 4 combined.
Right.
What do you think about this way they're choosing the city council president? Back when you were on the thing, it was done by seniority.
That's a good question.
Yes, it was more of a seniority thing because the people had experience.
Right.
The thing is, I think, and you take a look what you think about this. I think it's because it's switched from a position of honor to a position of power.
Yes.
Yeah, authority.
And yeah, exactly. And can you, as council president, now manipulate enough of the other members to do the will of the mayor?
Right. So
And
we're
I think
concerned
that's
more
where
about
you're
power now than we are just
say it.
I mean, besides having a city administrator, the mayor now has a staff of 5 people.
If you're listening, Mr. Mayor, some of that money that you're using and stuff for the staff can be placed in the centers, the minority centers, placed in there because it's monies that was there, and through the years, you took all these activities away from the centers. Gang violence goes up because you want 2 secretaries.
Oh, publicist.
Communication specialist.